Hi, I'm Josh Zipperman with Berkshire Communications, where I've worked on the Salton Sea over the last several years with local stakeholders and the state. I'm happy to lead today's conversation about the Salton Sea in this webisode of the Hot Purple Energy series called The Desert We Want in partnership with Palm Springs Life magazine. In today's webisode, we will discuss the Salton Sea from many different perspectives with Riverside County Supervisor Manuel Perez, Patrick O'Dowd, Executive Director of the Salton Sea Authority, Rod Colwell, CEO of Controlled Thermal Resources, and Jonathan Weisgall, Vice President of Government Relations for Berkshire Hathaway Energy. Hello, Manny, Patrick, Rod, and Jonathan. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello.
G'day.
So before we dive into our discussion, let me give a brief overview of the Salton Sea for our viewers. The Salton Sea is California's largest lake, bordering Riverside and Imperial counties. The Salton Sea was named in 1905 when the gates of an irrigation canal from the Colorado River failed and flooded the valley. Over the next 30 to 40 years, the sea transformed into California's most productive fishery and key wildlife refuge for more than 400 different species of birds along the Pacific Flyway. The sea was a popular tourism destination in the 1950s and 60s for water sports, fishing, and swimming. Celebrities such as Frank Sinatra, the Beach Boys, Jerry Lewis, and the Marx Brothers, and many others all flocked to the lake, which attracted more tourists than Yosemite National Park. Fast forward 50 years, and we have a Salton Sea that is twice as salty as the Pacific Ocean, shrinking rapidly and causing the playa around the shoreline to be exposed and creating dust that is posing as a public health threat to the communities around the sea. Under the direction of Governor Gavin Newsom, the state is implementing the Salton Sea Management Program, which includes a 10-year plan that aims to improve conditions by constructing 30,000 acres of habitat and dust suppression projects around the sea. After decades of plans and studies, there is now a unified effort between all the stakeholders to urgently implement projects and help save the sea. So after a not so brief overview, let's hear from our panelists about the role of the Salton Sea and the desert we want. So Supervisor, we'll start with you. Your roots with the Salton Sea go back further than any of us here. You grew up in the eastern Coachella Valley in Imperial County. You were previously an assembly member for the area and currently a county supervisor, and just recently now the chair of the Salton Sea Authority. Tell us, what does the sea mean to you personally, and what does it mean to the communities that live around it?
Well, thank you for the question, Josh. First and foremost, thank you for the invitation, as well as Palm Springs Life and Hot Purple Energy for making sure that we continue to do the education and outreach efforts that we need to when it comes to the Salton Sea. So obviously the Salton Sea, for many of us, if not all of us that now live in the Coachella Valley, is a precious resource. And we need to do everything we can to manage it and to take care of it, whether that be the natural habitats that exist, the surrounding species, obviously the wildlife, and humans, our people, our community overall. And so my relationship with the Salton Sea goes way back, as you mentioned, as a kid, just driving from the Coachella Valley to Imperial County to go visit my grandmother and my aunts and uncles in Calexico, California, and driving right by it and on the 86 freeway almost every other weekend. And then eventually getting a little older and moving on to middle school and high school and playing sports and driving on the bus or riding on the bus to go visit El Centro Spartans or the Brawley Wildcats, right? And then eventually driving back on the 86 or even Highway 111. But I guess my first real interaction with the Salton Sea, in which I actually went into the Salton Sea, was when my godfather, his name was also Manuel Aguilar, and his son, Alejandro, my best friend growing up, took me fishing. That was when I learned more about the Salton Sea. And I remember in those days, we could still fish for corvina. And that was my first interaction with the sea and enjoying it. And I think that it is a sad situation in which where we are today in comparison to where we were 40, 50 years ago. But I also feel that if we put our political will together, our knowledge, our skill set, our experience, resources, coordination at every single level of government, and obviously working with our community leadership at the local level, we can get somewhere. And that is the hope. Ultimately, all the reasons that you hear about why we need to save the Salton Sea are all important, right? Environmental issues, social issues, economic issues, you name them. But for me, the number one issue is the public health issue. And that's to ensure that we improve the quality of life of our residents and that we suppress that dust so that our kids and our families do not get respiratory illnesses or get sick as a result of the playa lake bed that's exposed. So ultimately, that's where we need to move towards. And that's what the research also indicates. And that's my goal. And I know the goal of many others on the Salton Sea Authority, as well as others throughout the state of California.
I think one of the game changers for the Salton Sea has really been this unity, this coming together of local stakeholders and leaders such as yourself, Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, Congressman Ruiz, Senator Buenoeso. Tell us, and many others, tell us about that and the importance of Proposition 68 and what that's meant for the sea and what your role has been in getting that money down to the sea to help drive that restoration.
I don't think we've ever had, at least in my knowledge of just knowing about the Salton Sea and then my engagement at a policy level with the Salton Sea, have we ever had such momentum, efforts that are taking place at every single level of government, including the community level and including educational researchers and nonprofit organizations. It seems to me that now it's somehow coming together, although there's a lot of great ideas. And mind you, there are some ideas that are out there, but for the most part, there are some great ideas. And the conversations and efforts with our Congressman Raul Ruiz, I understand, for example, he's trying to move forward infrastructure dollars to help us with the Salton Sea and the Army Corps of Engineers and making sure that they're supportive of what we need to do here locally. Obviously, the Assembly member, Eduardo Garcia, with ensuring that we pass the Parks and Water Bond, which you referred to earlier, which is Proposition 68, which was approved by the voters of the state of California back in 2018, will be majorly impactful. And although most of the funds that were allocated for that will be for the south end of the sea, we were able to manage and working with Secretary Wade Crowfoot, Department of Natural Resources, and others to receive $19 million for what we call the North Lake demonstration project, which will be next to the North Shore community. And rightly so, because once again, we're talking about a community that has real people, people that live there and that breathe the air. And it's right next to the North Shore Beach and Yacht Club. We're talking about a 160-acre lake to restore and manage the habitat, obviously control the dust, and ultimately make sure we benefit the community. Riverside County will be leading the design and construction effort of that project. Potentially, as a result of this project, it's envisioned that it can be integrated into a much larger project, up to 4,000 acres, which is the perimeter lake, the horseshoe, what we call, of the north end of the Salton Sea. So ultimately, Proposition 68 will enable us to suppress the dust and obviously, hopefully one day see what we once saw, the Pacific Flyway, stop for migrating and nesting birds to continue. You had people before us, if you will, meaning Congressman Raul Ruiz and Assembly Member Lado Garcia and myself, that have been working on the Salton Sea for a very long time. Whether it be Senator Denise Ducheney, who I remember working on this front, to Senator Juan Vargas, you mentioned as well, Senator Ben Wessel, to Sonny Bono, and supervisors like Roy Wilson, like John Benoit. And so obviously, this is not new to us, but what I would say is that I've never seen so much momentum in the form of coordination, discussion, resources. The political will is moving in the right direction, which I think ultimately, and I must mention as well, the educational research like UC Riverside and what they're trying to do, and other universities and nonprofits like Alianza and community groups on the ground, and just regular folk that live in the immediate area that want to see the best for their communities. I remember, just a tidbit here, I remember having conversations about the Salton Sea when I was in the state assembly with folks, and we would have workshops, forums. You'd be lucky if maybe 20, 30 people would show up. Now, you put it out there. I remember going to Sun City, Palm Desert. It was standing room only, over 500 people, I think it was. It was a lot of folks that were really interested in the Salton Sea. Rancho Mirage Library, same thing. Yep. So there is that momentum too on the ground. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Brian Estandi, who's been working on this issue too for a very long time, and my staff. I got staff members that like Pat Cooper, who has been on this issue for 20 some years. So obviously we will continue to do what we can. And I'll just say as well, when I was in the state assembly, we passed AB 71, which allowed us to begin the process for the Salton Sea Management Plan, the 10-year plan. And it brought a few resources to get that off the ground and going. Ultimately, what it allowed was coordination between the Salton Sea Authority and the state of California, which we didn't have enough of in the past. And then as well, I had legislation on the New River and ensuring that we did what we could to clean up the New River, knowing that eventually the New River ended up in the Salton Sea. So that's where we're at on that front, Josh.
Yeah, no, I think the collaboration and the leadership, your leadership and the leadership of our other elected officials and community groups and local stakeholders has really been critical. And that momentum is continuing with the governor's new proposed budget of $220 million for the Salton Sea. So tell us, how does that proposed budget and the promise of geothermal and lithium extraction and the Lithium Valley Commission and the North Lake pilot demonstration project. How did these all work together to give us the desert we want?
Well, that's a great question. I would just say that the effort around geothermal and lithium extraction, I believe, is real. It's been real. It's just a matter of ensuring the political will in Sacramento to advance the work. You know, there's competing interests. There's other sources of renewables. Geothermal is still a bit more expensive, although nonetheless, though, it's 24/7, 365 days a week. When the wind's not blowing, when the sun is not out, geothermal is baseload. We all know that. And so I believe that it is a future that we should continue to work on and count on and push folks at every level of government to ensure that it is successful, especially and the fact that it is in the south end of the Salton Sea. And what I mean by that, especially for Imperial County. Just like our eastern Coachella Valley communities that are underserved, Imperial County has communities that are also underserved. And ensuring that we are able to build out the geothermal efforts as well as the extraction of lithium, which will ultimately reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which will allow us to power electrical vehicles, so on and so forth, would be a good thing for the communities in Imperial County, economically, socially, public health-wise, all the way around, environmentally. And so their success is our success as a whole. And yes, the $220 million will be very, very helpful to continue to advance the efforts, whether that be in the geothermal lithium extraction efforts, or whether that be in the Red Hill Bay marina efforts down on the south end of the sea, or whether that be around Bombay Beach or around North Shore, the communities of Desert Shores and West Shores, which is still in Imperial County, but on the west end of the sea, and then ultimately in the north end of the sea, when we're talking about our tribe, which is Torres Martinez, and quite frankly, the eastern Coachella Valley and the Coachella Valley as a whole. And yesterday, we had our Salton Sea Authority meeting in which I had the opportunity to listen to UC Riverside researchers. And what they're trying to do is make it so that the Salton Sea is not only a local or regional issue, and we know that already, and obviously a state issue, but it's broader than that. It's a national issue. And so what they're doing with their research is trying to expand the awareness of the importance of the Salton Sea. And quite frankly, put our government structures, entities accountable. My hope is that with the Salton Sea Authority and with our partners, and now UC Riverside, research proposals when it comes to lithium production can be realized. Research proposals that come from a third-party validator so that we can really dig into why it is, for example, that youth are having nosebleeds in the middle of the day while they're going to school, like Seaview Elementary School, or why it is that we have higher rates of asthma in the immediate region, especially in the Imperial County area. How do we connect those dots when we're trying to suppress dust and do the research to find out what exactly is in that dust that may be causing sickness and public health concerns? How do we create the desert we want? We've been working on that for quite some time, Josh, and I think it's a matter of just trying to put it all together, and we're getting there. One bit at a time, and I know that people are sick and tired of doing more research and of waiting and concerned, and rightly so. But I also just want people to know that we are advancing. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the point that although right now These may be short-term, mid-term solutions. We also have a solution which some folks don't want to hear that it's a long-term solution, but it is being looked at, and that is the importation of water. Where that would come from, I don't know, whether it be the Sea of Cortez, Pacific Ocean. How would we do all that? International treaties, desalination efforts. There's a lot going on there. But that's also a piece of this puzzle that I want to make sure I'm clear with people that we have to put all this together. And I think now, finally, after so many years, we have a group of folks at every level of government, including our communities, that want to see all this come to fruition.
We're excited, and I agree. The resources are there, the momentum is there, and thank you so much for your leadership and continuous fight on this issue.
Thank you so much.
So, Patrick, you were recently on the board of the Coachella Valley Water District, and in that capacity, you served as a director on the Salton Sea Authority. And now that you're at the helm of the Salton Sea Authority, tell us about the role of the authority, its mission. Does the authority have any authority? And what are its goals and priorities?
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me today. As you mentioned, I actually served on the Salton Sea Authority board for the last 6 years and came on board as the executive director in November of last year. And so I had a pretty good understanding of what the authority did when I came on board. The role of the authority was formed in 1993. The local agencies, the counties, and the water districts recognized that the sea was aging and that had some challenges that needed to be addressed. And so they formed the Salton Sea Authority to identify those challenges, to develop solutions and implement those solutions, to essentially transition the sea from what it once was to what it sustainably can be. As far as whether you threw a lot of questions at me right there. So if I miss one or two, let me know. Whether or not the Salton Sea Authority has authority, that's a question I actually wrestled with quite a bit when I was on the board, because at the time it appeared that the authority had no authority, which was kind of a contradiction in terms. But since my involvement, and especially since I've come on board as the executive director, I've come to better understand that really the Salton Sea Authority has two different types of authority. They've got legal authority. It's a joint powers authority formed by the state of California, and it actually has legal authority to acquire property, either purchasing it or by eminent domain, to take on debt, to actually issue to actually assess taxes. The authorities never really exercise those authorities, but they are powers that are vested in the authority. What the authority also has is what's called apparent authority, and the authority actually is formed by locally elected officials from Riverside and Imperial County, as well as the water districts. On my board are two representatives from Riverside, two supervisors from Riverside County, two supervisors from Imperial County, two directors from the Coachella Valley Water District, two directors from the Imperial Irrigation District, and the president and secretary, the chairman and secretary of the Torres Martinez Desert Cahuilla Indians. So they're all elected local officials representing everybody in the Imperial and Coachella Valleys.
So the Salton Sea Authority is really the place where all of the locals come together to make critical decisions about the Salton Sea and to help shape what the revitalization of a sustainable sea looks like. Is that fair to say? So
we couldn't do that without our state and federal partners, and even our what we call our NGO partners. We have regional and national, and frankly even international environmental groups and groups in interested in equity and social justice, and they're all involved in the conversation. So we have, at the county level, we have limited resources to address the challenges at the sea. So we need our state and federal partners to tackle these challenges. The authorities played a very significant role in that, working both with the state, but also at the federal level to identify the challenges and bring on board resources that can allow projects to be developed over time.
So let's talk about resources and projects and the opportunity for what a revitalized sea means. What does a revitalized sea mean to the region? We're going to talk about lithium and geothermal and renewable energy a little bit later today in the webisode. But tell us a little bit about what a revitalized sea, what that opportunity looks like. What could it mean for the region?
Well, you kind of set the table a little bit when you talked about some of the components, because for me, it's not just the sea, it's the sea and the region. The plan for the sea proper, the shoreline inward, there have been plans developed. There have been numerous plans developed over time, from bringing water in from Mexico or the Pacific Ocean to building a dike across the middle of the sea. There have been a number of different projects that have been proposed and advanced. None of them have really developed to the point where they could secure funding and move forward. The state is actually in the process of reevaluating the proposal to import water from Mexico and elsewhere. But the authority really, we kind of look at the challenges at the sea kind of as a three-legged stool. There's really three components to it. Right now, the state is undertaking what they call their 10-year plan, which is part of their commitments under a transfer agreement that was negotiated back in the early 2000s. And under that commitment, the state has the responsibility of providing 30,000 acres of habitat and dust mitigation. They initiated that process recently with the groundbreaking of the what they call the Species Conservation Habitat Project. I almost didn't know what to say because we always refer to it as SCH. So they started SCH, which is a 4,000 acre project, about a little over $200 million to cover playa, exposed shoreline at the sea to reduce dust and restore habitat that was lost to the sea. 4,000 acres is a lot, but it's hardly more than 10% of what the state is committed to do over the next now 6.5 years. So they've got a lot of work to do and a long way to go and need tremendous resources to do that. The other thing we need to do is develop, identify, and agree upon that long-term, what I call the big idea, which kind of anchors all of these projects around the sea, something that everybody locally can embrace and say, that's the plan. As I mentioned, some people have looked to the seawater importation for that. That is certainly something that the authority has supported in concept to the extent that it could be deemed feasible. But there's also been studies that show that the cost of that is in the tens of billions of dollars. And frankly, we just have never had those kinds of resources available to us. We've also developed back in 2016 and prior with funds from the state, we developed a plan called the Perimeter Lake Plan, which would conserve the water flowing to the sea and use it for mitigation and habitat purposes and otherwise. And we have been in the process of securing funding to advance that concept and consider it an alternative to others, including a seawater importation. But the thing that I am focused on and the authority is really passionate about, particularly because of the local leadership, are the communities around the sea. And while we look at different options for addressing the sea proper, the communities around the sea have declined over the years. They were founded as resort communities, right, in the 60s and 70s. And so people were buying them as second homes and moving out here. And as the sea rose and the fish died, people ran away from the properties and the values became depressed. And the people who moved into the property are frankly some of the most disadvantaged people in our region, if not our state. And because of the continuing decline of the sea, those communities continue to erode also. So what we're working to do, and we're having some success and some resonance, is we're looking to stem the tide of the erosion in the communities and in fact restore them to vital, livable communities that anybody would want to live in. We believe that it's beautiful down there, and I'm really excited about that work.
I think that's a really important point that a lot of people don't realize. The sea is still today a beautiful, magnificent place. It's not this wasteland that some people make it out to be. It's really a magnificent place and a place where there are thriving communities. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And you talked
So
about
it goes to the point of what's often talked about is the storytelling, and I'll be brief. I was interviewed a couple of months ago by a local newspaper, and they said, "How do you deal with the stigma of the sea?" And I said, it kind of starts with you, right? If you say that it's a stinky place and an ugly place, and you're going to die, then it's always going to have a stigma. There was a young lady being interviewed. The Audubon put on a roundtable a couple of weeks ago, and a young lady from the North Shore community was being interviewed, and had the chairman of the water board and our assembly member and other elected officials all addressing the technical aspects of the sea. And this young lady was talking about her neighborhood, and the thing she said is, "It's beautiful. It's where she lives. It's home to her." And I think we need to make those safe, affordable, attractive places for the people in those communities.
Absolutely. And I think, so touching on that, Supervisor Perez discussed the North Lake demonstration project. And I think the authority is really playing an important role in leading that project and leading that effort. So tell us a little bit about that project, the North Lake demonstration project, and the board's role, the Salton Sea Authority board's role in it, and where you see that, the impact you see that project making for the community.
Sure. The challenge is always money, and we could do a lot more with a lot more money. And so what we have to do is we have to prioritize the resources that we have available for projects that make sense. And so what we were able to do in Proposition 68 is secure about $20 million, and the authority had to decide where to put that $20 million. And the decision was made to allocate those funds to the North Shore demonstration pilot project. Now, that project is actually developmental in that we are going to, through that 160-acre lake situated at or around the North Shore community, we're going to study and evaluate different design concepts for levees that can be used for development of future deep water habitat, including perhaps a perimeter lake. We're going to look at different sources of water. But at the end of the day, what we're hoping to end up with is a 160-acre lake that will be an anchor in that community that can restore some of the recreational benefits that community lost as the sea degraded and receded. So I'm really excited about that. The role the authority is playing is we are the grantee under the Proposition 68. We're working with Riverside County in the development of that. They have the technical expertise to implement that project, and we're fortunate to have partners like Riverside and Imperial County and IID and CVWD, and even Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway generously has assisted us in telling our story. Also, they are a sponsor of our website, saltonsea.com.
That's great. That's great. Well, that's really exciting. Any last words you'd like to leave us with, and any suggestions on how folks can get involved and get engaged with the authority and with North Lake Demonstration Pilot Project and any other projects that the authority undertakes? How can folks?
Absolutely. I think that our stakeholders run from Mexico to Morongo. Everything that happens at the sea, and everything that is beneficial to the sea accrues to the benefit of everybody from one end of the valley to the other. In fact, you could say it goes all the way to the coast when we have a big burp and the air quality degrades. So I believe that people should pay attention to what we're doing, but more importantly, they should, as others would assert, they need to get involved with our work in Sacramento and DC and help us advocate for the types of resources that we need to do our work. It's not going to come from one paycheck. It's going to come from a few dollars here and a few dollars there from this agency and that agency. So working together with the locals and the regional stakeholders, all of the cities in both valleys have a stake in what we're doing. So I look forward to working together with them to advance projects and policies that will, again, allow the sea to transition from what it once was to what it sustainably can be.
That's great. I couldn't agree more with you. I think it's an exciting time for the Salton Sea, a critical time, but we have, I think, some real promise and excitement on the horizon. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Happy to be here.
Another really exciting development for the Salton Sea has been lithium extraction. It's estimated that 40% of the world's lithium supply is under the sea. So Rod, tell us a little bit about your company, Controlled Thermal Resources, and your vision for the Salton Sea.
Well, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this discussion. So, Controlled Thermal Resources, we've been actively involved at our Hell's Kitchen development for around 8 years. Hell's Kitchen was named after the original bar and dance hall that used to be there in the early century. So hence the name. So we're a developer, owner, operator with a very, very long-term view. Our view is a sort of 50-year view on development. We're actually in the advanced stages of development now, where we plan to deliver our first 49.9 megawatt geothermal power facility in September 2023, and a 20,000 tonne per year lithium hydroxide facility in Q1 2024. So it's been a long process, and I think that this discussion's great because, as mentioned, the Playa, we're actually one of the developers that is actually in and exposed to the receding sea. We're right on the foreshore, and in peak summer load like this week, 120 degrees, you'll see the sea recede up to 30 to 40 yards a month where we're located in the Alamo Delta. So that exposes us. We've got thousands of acres, right? So, and we don't particularly want to be part of it as a community doesn't, as that exposes thousands or tens of thousands of acres really for our people and also the communities to be able to come up with a strategy and deal with dust and mitigation and things like that. So the opportunity, I guess, beyond, green lithium and, 100% renewable energy is actually this could be a sort of a culmination beyond commercial development to, say, ag land, habitat, covering the Playa. There's many ways of doing that, native species, dealing with invasive species. And we're actively involved as CTR with the federal government and state government and many agencies in this effort. And I think it's a very, very important, opportunity to commercialise something that's really quite a large issue.
Yeah, and that's great. You guys are really involved in the whole picture when it comes to the Salton Sea with wetlands habitat and exposed Playa and that extraction of the lithium and geothermal development. So you guys are really looking at the whole picture, which is really exciting to see. So tell me a little bit about the demand and the market for lithium and the opportunity there. What is your project and other projects around the sea that are attempting lithium extraction? How can those meet this demand, and what is the opportunity there?
So I think that the opportunity, the demand itself globally by 2028, 2030 has been reported at close to 2 million metric tonnes per annum. And that's based off actual gigafactories that are under construction, of which some of those now, late at the gate, if you like, are underway in the United States. But typically, lithium production is, produced in the Atacama in South America through evaporation ponds, then shipped to Asia for post-processing. Similarly to Western Australia, spodumene, it's an ore, it's dug up and, processed and sort of sent to Asia again for post-processing and cleanup. So it's a big environmental issue in the sense of environment as far as scarring, mining as such, typical mining, and also the CO2 footprints of mining and also the transport cost. Now, what's unique about the Salton Sea field is we can produce a battery-grade green lithium hydroxide or carbonate product here in real time. So it doesn't take 12 to 18 months to evaporate, to concentrate down, and then send it to ship. We will produce this in, from wellhead to super sack, if you like, in 20 minutes. So the opportunity, when you think about that, as the Biden administration's really sort of got on board, and particularly the efforts, commendable efforts by the state, Lithium Valley was thought about as not beyond just producing a lithium product. How do we produce, the supply chain from that? So localization is a big deal on anyone's radar at the moment. How many links from the supply chain can be removed simply by co-locating and producing here in Imperial Valley? So the opportunity beyond just a product is really, lithium's is the cathode side of the battery. So having a cathode plant co-located on site, so you don't need to, the capital costs of producing that into a sack and risks of sending it to Asia for processing. Well, it can basically be a pipe through a wall and processed here in real time. Battery facilities, assembly, et cetera, and the supply chain that's being co-located, powered by 100% renewable energy, baseload energy, which is required, is really the opportunity. And the CO2 benefits, I think we're close to 15 kilograms per kilogram of lithium produced less CO2 than, say, hard rock mining. So it has the highest sustainability credentials pretty much on the planet, and it's an economically viable process and project.
I mean, that's why many are calling this the Lithium Valley and comparing it to Silicon Valley and the potential impact that Lithium Valley could have, similar to the huge impact that Silicon Valley has had and continues to have. So it's a huge opportunity, and the formation of the Blue Ribbon Lithium Valley Commission that you're a member of is really a big step, and something that has significance, real significance for these projects moving forward. Controlled Thermal Resources started building 2 pads in February for lithium production and geothermal power. Tell us about the plan and the process for the plant.
Yeah, sure. So we recently completed those earthworks. Simply speaking, our drilling program commences in October. Some of our processing plant, if you like, commercial piloting commences around that time. That's already been designed and underway, and all critical paths, as far as permitting, engineering, et cetera, are on track. So for as mentioned, a 2023 delivery for the power facilities and stage 1, and 2024 for stage 1 of lithium, the 20,000 tonne per year lithium hydroxide facility, early 2024. Beyond that, we're actually working on another 130 to 260 megawatt power facility on exposed lake bed playa. I mean, it's just a disaster area out there. And that's equivalent to 80,000 metric tonnes of lithium hydroxide. So you're talking world-class facility. We plan to start that engineering work very, very soon. We really want to be we don't want to complete one project and start the next one. I think, as you probably see reported, the market demand inflection point for where supply and demand crossover is as early as 2023. With every time we look at pick up a newspaper, the compound growth rate of car sales alone, and subsequent lithium demand is going to outstrip supply quicker than we realise. So what's unique about this resource? We can be scaled quickly, and what I'm explaining here is, we can produce up to 300,000 metric tonnes per year and 1,100 megawatts of power to organically power those facilities and sell baseload into the system and wherever. So we can scale up simply by more wells, more production, more steam, more minerals, right, in a very sustainable way. And to be really clear, I mean, there's no connectivity or no connection at all between the Salton Sea itself and the brine resource, just to really be clear about that. The brine comes from 8,000 feet below in the end of the San Andreas, where there's this active sandstone, homogeneous style of geological features. So this is completely closed loop, real time, no very low water usage, no environmental, no byproducts, nothing. So as demand comes on, I think that we're ready or getting ready, or as best we can, to ramp up as quick as we can. I'd say our biggest challenge is getting a clear path to permitting, getting support from the federal government, state government to be able to fast track this critical industry.
How can controlled thermal resources play a role in the desert we want?
Well, I think we can play a critical role. We have close to 6,000 to 7,000 acres of surface area in which we only use a few hundred acres. Very low footprint for these geothermal fields. What that means is there's a large, as the lake's receding, and a lot of our leases are still under the lake, and the determined, recession of the sea, we can be actively involved and work with the state and work with all the agencies and NGOs and others on how we best, what's the best term, master plan that properly ahead of time. Think of this like a subdivision where we could do some ag land, maybe we can do some solar to help stop wind blowing, maybe we can do some native species, habitat type of, situations. We're not sure about wetlands. I mean, water is always going to be an issue, but nevertheless, there are methods, multiple methods as the states, DWR and other agencies are working on, and we're the first ones, and we're actively in those discussions on how we best master plan this ahead of time, be proactive, not reactive after the events happen. We have an opportunity as another 2,000 acres is exposed very, very soon to figure out what we're going to do that as it recedes.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You guys have a lot of opportunity, and it's exciting to see a new project in the ground. It's been decades since there's been a new geothermal plant in the Salton Sea Basin and the lithium extraction. So it's exciting to see your project come to life and to hear about it. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being here with us. And let me ask you our closing question here. Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave us with today, and any thoughts on how folks can get involved with CTR's project, and how folks can stay in touch with you? We're
being actively involved, to 8 to 10 years now with the community. We've always been an open book and very approachable. We've spent a lot of time in community engagement. And furthermore, the Lithium Valley Commission has been a commissioner as such, is totally focused on, community engagement. That includes, comment to environmental, includes jobs at all levels. It includes training programs and then local, colleges, right through the programs that we can be involved in. So I think that pretty much covers it, I think, but the community engagement is absolutely critical for us. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you for your time. We really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. So thank you so much. All right. Thanks, Josh. Take care. So Jonathan, Berkshire Hathaway owns 10 geothermal plants at the Salton Sea. You're currently working on 2 demonstration plants. Tell us a little bit about those 2 projects and what you guys are working on.
Sure. Well, thanks very much for having me. We started about 35 years ago as a company called Cal Energy, and we own and operate 10 geothermal plants adjacent to the Salton Sea, with 21 production wells that bring up geothermal brine at a temperature well in excess of 500 degrees Fahrenheit. And that brine that we bring up is a saturated solution of dissolved minerals with iron and calcium, sodium, potassium, kind of a whole list from the table of elements, manganese, magnesium, zinc, and also lithium. We process 50,000 gallons a minute of this brine, and we've been doing it for quite some time. And the brine has about 250 parts per million of lithium. If we can successfully recover the lithium from that 50,000 gallons a minute of that brine, we could actually meet a significant portion of today's world demand for lithium, possibly as much as a quarter or a third. But the technology to show that the lithium can be recovered from the geothermal brine has not yet been proven on a commercial scale. And you've got to show that at about a 1/10 commercial scale before you can invest the huge amount of money needed to make this a commercial venture. So we embarked on a 2-phase project to show we can produce battery-grade lithium from that brine in a way that is, number one, technically feasible, number two, commercially viable, and number three, environmentally responsible. So we applied for 2 competitive grants, one from the California Energy Commission, one from the U.S. Department of Energy. We won both of them, each with matching awards from our company. So a $6 million grant from the California Energy Commission to show that we can extract lithium from our geothermal brine to produce lithium chloride. That demonstration plant is scheduled to come online in March of next year, 2022. We also won a competitive solicitation from the U.S. Department of Energy for about $15 million, and that's to convert that lithium chloride solution into battery-grade lithium hydroxide and to fund engineering for a full-scale commercial lithium recovery process. And that demonstration project is scheduled to be completed by about December of 2022, each with matching grants. So about $42 million of R&D work going on. We've both are underway. We've on the lithium demonstration project, we've completed our patent review. We've started on-site field testing, started civil construction. We've competitively bid out a fixed price engineering procurement and construction contract. And on the other contract, that we won the other award from the U.S. Department of Energy, again, where we'll be matching the $15 million award with $15 million of corporate funds. We're going to have that agreement in place by next month. And as I said, get that moving and have it in place by December of 2022.
So that's a real public-private partnership. That's some really exciting news and a significant investment by Berkshire Hathaway, which is a Warren Buffett company, into the Salton Sea. So that's really exciting news. So one of the things that we have constantly heard about is the struggle with the cost of geothermal energy. So tell us a little bit about how lithium extraction can really help bridge the gap and make the geothermal industry really viable. And talk to us a little bit about that and that synergy, that ecosystem that's kind of developing down by the sea with extraction.
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, Josh, geothermal simply is it's a terrific form of renewable energy. It's baseload. It runs 24/7. It has a tiny footprint, minimal water use. It's got terrific attributes, but it is not cost competitive with wind and solar for a lot of different reasons that we can go into. But basically today, wind, solar, together with battery storage, is costing out anywhere from about 3 to 5 cents, and geothermal has simply not been competitive with those renewable resources. The one very positive side effect of lithium recovery from geothermal would be essentially this will represent obtaining a secondary stream of income from the existing geothermal plants. We've got a multi-billion-dollar investment already in the ground. And by adding this bolt-on technology to recover the lithium, we hope that we'll really be able to revive the decades-old geothermal power industry in Imperial County. We've not built a new geothermal plant for about 20 years. So this can not only promote and move the lithium industry along, but possibly create new jobs in the geothermal field and lower the price of geothermal base load power for the benefit of California customers. So there's kind of a potential win-win-win here for the geothermal side of the operations as well as the lithium production.
So you mentioned jobs. That's always a hot button issue. Talk to us a little bit about how geothermal and lithium extraction, how the two of those can work together to create jobs, stimulate economic development, and really help us create the desert we want.
Well, We're pretty active already in Imperial County. We've got a workforce of about, I want to say about 230. All live in Imperial County, some in Riverside. We've paid about $45 million in property taxes over the last 8 years. The successful lithium production, I mean, at a minimum, would double the size of that workforce. I mean, maintenance, operations, management, administration. I'm not just talking construction. Construction will be huge. I mean, construction will require several thousand workers. But once the lithium facility is in place, we'll at least double our workforce. It's a little premature to say how big it will be, but it's going to be substantial. And we, of course, are going to want to hire locally. We're already in conversations with, for example, the Imperial Valley Economic Development Corporation, Imperial Valley College, to discuss the development, for example, of an apprenticeship program for lithium project employees that might be under the California Department of Industrial Relations and the like. So we obviously want to involve the local community, and we think there will be really substantial new job opportunities. And these are high-paying jobs. Already, our average wage at our geothermal plant is nearly twice the median wage in Imperial County, and together with the usual health retirement benefits. So we think it's a tremendous opportunity to increase the workforce in Imperial County for what is going to be a very exciting new industry, and one I might say, as I said earlier, will also be environmentally responsible, because that's a very important part of this whole picture.
Of course. And with the investment potentially of the Biden administration and their infrastructure plan, there could even be a greater boost to lithium extraction and to the geothermal industry as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. Actually, Energy Secretary Granholm has now, on at least 3 occasions in the last week, talked quite specifically about the Department of Energy grant to Berkshire Hathaway Energy. And that's really in the context of, people talk about mining. And right now, lithium is mined. I mean, open pit mining in Western Australia and evaporation ponds in South America. And there's this notion of mining, which causes consternation among many environmentalists. We're not going to be mining geothermal. We're essentially going to be precipitating it out of the stream of our brine that we've been processing for the last 35 years. So I think what you have in the Biden administration is a recognition that here is one way to produce lithium in a purely benevolent, environmentally responsible way. Some people might call it mining and lithium extraction. I like to call it recovery, because we're not digging into the ground to get that lithium. This is going to be, without question, the world's most environmentally responsible lithium production method there can be.
Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave us with? One of the things I'm always asked about is how can members of the public, the community, get involved, get engaged?
There is no question here that to make lithium production successful in Imperial County, there is a need for community outreach, communication, complete transparency as we move forward. I've got to tell you, if this were a baseball game, we're still in the top of the first inning. I mean, we're still trying to prove out the commercial, technical, environmental viability of this project. But we held a virtual town hall meeting back in March. We are going to hold another town hall meeting in July. We're going to open that to any and all interested citizens and stakeholders. We feel it is absolutely critical to engage the local community in our plans, to show what we're doing, to talk about hiring, but also to talk about our methodology. So the need here for community outreach, I think, is critical. And we are certainly committed to that going forward.
So thank you so much for joining us. And it was really great to see you and hear from you. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
On behalf of Palm Springs Life, thank you for joining us for The Desert We Want.